I am Tara Antonellis. I'm a level 2 quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, a Hellenistic astrologer. I read tarot and I also do Reiki. This is my podcast. Welcome to Seeking Beyond. Hi, guys. Welcome to Seeking Beyond. I have one of my good friends, Lara Starr. And you know what? Now that I have you on here, I want to get an official enunciation with your name because everyone calls you Laura, Lara, Lara, and I'm just like, how do you say your name? Because I say mine Tara, and you just have an L in front of yours.
It's funny that you would think that Lara and Tara are kind of because people pronounce things different ways. It's like Lara Croft is when I tell people
Okay.
nobody could pronounce my name right. Everybody called me Lara until Lara Croft came out, and I'm like, it's just like that. And they're like, oh, okay.
Okay,
So
perfect. Well, I'm glad that we got that fixed before I continue to
either
call
way,
you
I
Lara.
respond to all three.
Well, it's so good to have you on the podcast. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and say what kind of background in the woo-woo community you have?
I started out as a 9/11 truther. I was a firefighter back then around 9/11 happened. I was a junior member, but I got pretty involved in it, and I started getting involved in doing whistleblowing. And it's a long story, but it led to some scary experiences, which is why I left the US and I went backpacking. And then while I was backpacking, I had an out-of-body experience. I was literally just pulled out of body by my soul guides, and they gave me quite a pep talk. They told me, to if unless I want a new world order, to stop focusing on one because that was the timeline I was projecting myself into. And they said that if I really wanted to save the world, as I was so determined to do from all of this corruption with the cabal and everything, that the best way to do that is through trying to raise the consciousness of the planet. And so my guides were Pleiadians. I had never heard of Pleiadians before. I had never even heard of a starseed or anything like that. I was very much involved in the dark side of it, the FEMA camps and the really, you know what I mean, the heavy side of that, anti-cabal work. And so it was a huge shift change for me having that experience because I didn't believe anything. I used to block David Icke supporters for talking about reptilians on my page and stuff because I was so set against it. I was very much like, locked into the physical. But then that astral projection, when I was pulled out of body, I learned so much about myself and about the situation that you can't see. And there is so much more happening in the astral than there is in the physical. And that is where a lot of this light against dark stuff is going on. So that's where I got really interested in astral projection, and I started practicing it all the time to be able to just get a bigger perception of the world and stuff. And it led to some wild experiences, especially when I was digging around in the Vatican archives and stuff in the astral.
Wow.
So it was good
Okay.
fun, but I did end up having some scary experiences, and that stopped me from doing astral projection for a while. But then I found I was very much into Dolores Cannon's work. I found her the day after my astral projection experience. So for me, she was instrumental in really understanding the game that we're playing, this human thing that we're doing. So she really helped me with getting a foundation of understanding as to what we're dealing with and how to empower ourselves. So I loved her work so much, and that's why I offered my services to her daughter, and I was an admin on the page for about 5 years. Until we went our separate ways over philosophical disagreements about entities. And so I started my own Facebook page where I talk about astral experiences, astral projection, astral creatures, you name it. And yeah, I got into doing these clearings myself. So now I clear spaces and entities and that sort of thing from people and spaces.
That is actually my next question. What exactly is SRT?
It stands for Spirit Release Therapy. We are basically, we go into groups of either facilitators or mediums. The facilitator is the person who finds the clients that need the clearings, people who are going through really tough mental health situations, people who have had extreme trauma, or people that are just having really scary stuff happen to them at night. A lot of people come to us for sleep paralysis, psychic attacks, that sort of thing. They can feel something isn't right, and they just know that there's a lot that's off. Quite a few of our clients are schizophrenics and stuff like that, because we've learned the only real difference between a schizophrenic and a medium in most cases, I mean, there are some cases where it's trauma induced, but in most cases, they are a medium themselves. And they are not aware that the thoughts and the voices that they're hearing aren't from themselves. They're picking it up because they're telepathic, and they're picking it up from either spirits that haven't crossed over, or from their own spirit guides, or from an entity that is trying to manipulate them, unfortunately. And there's a lot of those out there.
It's fascinating. So do you see this as you're taking your clients through these journeys? Are you like using your own abilities as you do this work?
I am a medium, but I'm what we would jokingly call a baby medium. I'm still lifting my frequency enough to be able to perceive these things, because that's what it's really all down to, is that they carry a very high vibration. And when you carry a high vibration and you are removing the mental blocks that stop you from being telepathic, because really we're all telepathic. It's just that we don't realize we are, and we've been gaslighted into thinking that we're not. So there's a lot of skill that comes through just being a facilitator, because we do have to use our intuition to know what's the right questions to ask, all of those things. But there is a very strict protocol that we go through of questions, and we ask those questions to a medium. The medium is the other partner that really makes this work possible, because the medium is tuning into the energy of the client, and they use a form of remote viewing, basically, to kind of tune into their client, see what's going on. They can view the whole etheric field, and then they go through bit by bit using the protocol that we have to make sure that every part of that etheric body is cleared, whether it's an entity or an earthbound, portals, curses, a lot of devices we find attached to people and stuff like that.
So interesting. You know, as I do QHHT with some of my clients, I feel like I tap into something similar to that as they go through these sessions. I feel like I'm in there and I can really picture and see what they're visualizing. I wonder if there's a correlation there. Is it similar to QHHT?
Well, that's the interesting thing. Like hypnosis, it's taking you down to the deepest level of trance, the somnambulistic level. And that is almost to the point where you are in the astral yourself, but in your mind. So you're going through and you're actually time traveling in your own mind when you do hypnosis. So what the mediums do when they're doing this work is they are, like I said, they're reaching out to this person, but they're not traveling over time. So really it's just space that we're moving through. And through that space, we can pick up all kinds of stuff. But it's really the soul guides that are doing all the work. The medium is the one that is tuning in, yes, and they do perceive things. There's a lot of stuff that they can see while they're viewing remotely, but it's really the soul guides that are doing the heavy lifting when it comes to the work that needs to be done, because we can't affect the astral as well as they can.
I see. That is cool. I definitely want to check that out. I want to add that one to my repertoire. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that in
It's
depth.
a pleasure. Our founder, Dr. Terrence Palmer, has a YouTube channel. And if you look on his YouTube, you can actually see some of the case studies, and they do have some recordings of clearings that have happened on there. So you can see the medium and facilitator and how they go through the protocol. It's really fun to watch, actually.
What is maybe one of the most interesting cases that you feel comfortable sharing and something wild?
Well, wild, it's funny, the first thing that comes to mind is this woman the other day we did a clearing on, and she has back pain. So we were looking into the back pain for her, and she had what we call a past life energetic resonance. And this is an injury or a weapon that you carry with you from a past life that is still affecting you energetically to this day. And we found out that her back pain was actually caused by a tiger attack.
Wow.
That in her past life, she was a young man moving through the jungle, and a tiger jumped on him and yeah, attacked him quite profusely. And she still had scars in her like on her etheric body that we removed from this tiger attack.
Oh,
You know, it's
that's
funny. She's actually
literal.
extremely allergic to cats in this lifetime as well, which is very funny. I found out in the feedback.
Well, I can just tell my husband, maybe you were attacked by a big tiger in a previous life.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why it's fun because you never know what you're going to discover. I mean, there was one lady that had not, what do you call it, numbness in her legs, and we found a past life energetic resonance where she broke her spine. So when we cleared it, the numbness went away.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so exciting.
So you
I'm
see,
gonna take
it's
some of
similar
your
because when
classes.
you go through a hypnosis session and you go through the life where you had that paralysis, you can heal that and move forward, and that will also heal it. So, I mean, it's really just energetic work on a different level.
Right. I see the correlation that they're similar, but it's a little bit more hands-on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, one of the questions that I've encountered that is difficult for me to explain to some people is when we separate ourselves from religion and that whole propaganda of a devil and a Satan, what's a good way to kind of really explain what evil is outside of Christian base?
Well, everything, as Nikola Tesla said, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And everything that exists in this universe carries a certain vibration. And we humans, we bounce around vibrationally all the time. When you're feeling low and sad and depressed or angry, that is a low vibration. But when you're feeling, elated, happy, joyous, that is a high vibration. Well, these beings, especially when it comes to astral beings, is they all have a certain vibration that they carry. And well, to be clear, demons carry a very low vibration. Angels carry very high vibration. We're kind of in the middle of that. And so in order to have an attachment, something like a demonic attachment, or I even say a low vibe attachment, because there are many different kinds, you have to be a low vibe because the frequencies have to match. It's kind of like tuning a radio station. And when your radio station is changing, you're changing frequencies and you're picking up various frequencies that you're matching. So the best thing you can do to avoid anything negative, and there's a lot of them. I mean, anything that people believe is real is real. They manifest it in the astral. So unfortunately, just because there are so many people that believe in a Satan, there is a thought form that exists in the astral that has many of those attributes, which is one of the reasons why so many people believe what they see. Because people don't really understand what demons are. Demons are actually just thought forms. They're basically like artificial intelligence that we create in the astral through belief. So if anytime humans believe in something, you're creating a thought form or a version of that in the astral. So that's why a lot of people claim to see these things, whether they're creating that thought form in their own head or seeing one that somebody else created is another story entirely. But that is why there are so many different variations out there, is that everything that exists is technically a thought form. And even those beings, depending on their frequency, is really how they affect people. So if you're being affected by something low vibe, or even if you just believe in Satan strong enough, you can create a version of that Satan, which is basically like, how we create imaginary friends?
Mhm.
Well, we can create imaginary bullies, imaginary torturers who come and do these things to us in the night. So a lot of times this is what we're doing, is we're trying to figure out whether or not is an outside energy that's coming in, an outside frequency, or whether or not it's a frequency that you are creating that is causing the trauma and the issues.
That is such an awesome articulation. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I've been stumped by that question a few times because I'm like, no, I don't believe in the devil, but yes, I believe in demons. And they're like, how does that work? And so thank you. That's wonderful. And with the whole quantum like situation that we are in, how do we explain the karmatic loop that's going on when we have other entities connecting with us that are free of that? How would we explain the karmic path?
It is tough because every time we do clearings on somebody, no matter who we're tuning into, one of the things we ask in the protocol are there any ancestral karmic contracts that need to be cleared? And every single time I ask that question, I get a yes. Because so many of us are repeating cycles, because we just haven't healed from it. We haven't forgiven, whether or not it's a person in our family or somebody that is around us in general from a soul group. A lot of times we reincarnate with the same people over and over again because we haven't forgiven them and what they've done in the past. One of my favorite stories, for example, is Dolores Cannon was putting a young woman under because she was estranged from her family, having a lot of family issues, and she wanted to find out why. So she went into a past life, and she was a member of a Bedouin village, a tribe. And it was unfortunate, but there was an attack that was supposed to be coming from another tribe, and they were warned about this impending attack. So they sent their messenger to this other village to warn them to flee. And unfortunately, the messenger didn't make it in time. And so everybody was unfortunately killed. And so the
Oh,
messenger runs back to the tribe, tells them what happened. And the tribal leader was so angry that the message hadn't been delivered in time. So he actually sentenced this messenger to death. The last thing she remembered from this experience in this lifetime from that hypnosis session was seeing like critters crawling around on the sand in front of her because she was buried up to her neck in sand and
oh
left
my
there to
God.
die. So Dolores asked the higher self after she'd gone through the death experience, what was the purpose of this lifetime? Why did you show us, out of all the lifetimes she's had in the past, why would you show us this one? And the higher self actually laughed a little bit because it has a good sense of humor, and it said, oh, she's not going to like this. And she said, okay, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, you know, the tribal leader that sentenced her to death in this lifetime. She said, yes. And she said, this is the same soul that is her father in this lifetime.
Oh
He
no.
has the same domineering, controlling, aggressive form of tough love that he had in the previous incarnation. So she
Mm.
asked, how many times have I, has she reincarnated with this person over and over again? This was the sixth time that she had had an
Wow.
incarnation with that spirit in order to repair the anger and karmic backlash, I should say, from what happened from her murder. So she asked Dolores, why is this happening over and over? And they said, well, you haven't forgiven yet. You're still waiting for him to get it right. So many of us, what we don't realize is that the people in our lives, especially when it comes to family members, because a lot of times if you have difficulty within your family, your close family, there's a reason for that. There's some kind of a karmic issue that the two souls are trying to work out. And
Yep.
forgiveness is key in working that out. Otherwise, it will not work out, and people will continue to do that, that spiral.
I've actually been told that in my own sessions. I have a relationship that is one of my karmatic relationships, and we've incarnated many lives, and tough love is one of those keywords with it too. How
Murders
bizarre.
happen a lot because a lot of people, they think murders are repaid through the same thing, like for example, so a serial killer kills people. What do? We kill him when we sentence him to death, and then we don't realize that it's just perpetuating the cycle, because a lot of these souls are actually just kind of chosen to be bad guys. They're playing a role that a group of souls have actually asked them, like they're playing the bad guy. It's just like in the movie, like in Harry Potter, everybody thinks that Voldemort is the worst person ever, but in real life, the actor that plays him is a really decent guy, and that happens a lot of the time.
Oh, my next question is kind of flowing right into this one. What is an NPC?
This is a tough one. This is when it comes to Dolores's
No
most
pressure.
complicated
No
subject. No,
pressure.
I'm really good at this because people have asked me this question many, many times on Dolores Cannon's page. And to be fair, she calls them backdrop people. And if you understand what a backdrop is, when you're taking photos, you have a background, to make it look. That's what they are. Is they're basically background people. They're extras in your movie, because it's a long story, but it really boils down to the whole quantum mechanics thing, because we are in a subjective holographic reality. We're basically in our own little matrix. And so the souls that you intermingle with, the souls that you have experiences with, those are real souls that have come down here to have experiences with you. These are people that have chosen before you even incarnated to have an experience with you. Whether it's a good one or bad one is all based on that karma that we were talking about just now. So these experiences are all meant to teach us something. And most of the time we're teaching them and they're teaching us. But with the NPCs, they're basically just filler. They're not really meant to give you an experience. They're just meant to make the world look fuller, just like extras do in a movie. You know, they may not have a speaking role, and if they do, they won't say that much to you. They'll just say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" and keep moving. Or you might even work with one and spend a few hours a day with one, but you'll notice that, you know, when you really get down to knowing them, it's like nobody's really home. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they're not
I
completely with it.
I love the airport example that she gives.
Yes.
And when you go to the airport and there's just so many people and it's just like blank stares behind them and
Yes.
yeah.
It's really important to note that there is no way to tell the difference between an NPC and a normal human, because somebody that may seem like an NPC could just be somebody who's new to being a human. You know, they may have just,
Right.
you know, elevated themselves up to having a human body, because we don't start off as human. We start ourselves off as very simple organisms, and we work our way up through more and more complex bodies. So there's a lot of people you'll meet. And even I love to use the example of dogs. You know, you meet some dogs, like I would say a Malinois, for example, who is just like a triple A student. They absorb everything. They're so good. They're, you know what I mean? Like they're the best version of themselves possible. But then you meet another dog and they're so clumsy. They, you know what I mean? Like they can't even do basic things like
My dog.
fetch. Like they're new to being a dog. They're just kind of getting the ropes. That's basically what it is for a lot of humans too. So that's one of the reasons why she was always very clear that there are going to be new humans out there who are trying to get, you know, the hang of this whole human thing, and we need to be patient with them as well. But what's interesting is the Pleiadians, the Tegetans that I listen to the most through Cosmic Agency on YouTube. They have explained that they can actually see the difference between an NPC and a person, because I should say a person, but a soul from source, something that's not actually a part of the matrix itself, because they only have an etheric field over their head. They don't have a full body etheric field over them. So if you ask the Tegetans how many people are real versus how many are not, they say there's only about 1.6 billion real souls on Earth right now that are incarnated in physical bodies, and all the
Wow.
rest of them are NPCs.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Well, so Dolores Cannon talks about the three waves of volunteers as well, and the idea of being a star seed. I find it fascinating that you said that you didn't even know what Pleiadians were when your guides came to you. I didn't know what the term Arcturus meant, even though I guess it's in
Oh.
our solar system. And in one of my sessions, one of my questions when I was under hypnosis was, where does my soul originate from? And a resounding instant, really quickly, punctual Arcturus. And I'm don't know too much about it, but I'm starting to dig deeper into that. But how would we explain someone who to someone who's never heard it before what a starseed is and what the three waves of volunteers are in a nutshell?
We are reinforcements. We are here to basically come in and help raise the consciousness of Earth. And it's no easy task, because many of the souls that have been here for a long time have been in a downward spiral of pain and suffering and misery and enslavement. And so there's a lot of ETs up there that started paying attention. Dolores explained that this was back when they started detonating nukes. Apparently, we got everybody's attention when we started doing that. Because we don't just affect our own dimension, we affect all the dimensions in that level. So whenever they set off a nuclear weapon, they're affecting 5D and many other dimensions that are a part of that fabric of reality. So that's what really got their attention up there. And they said, okay, they're not just going to destroy themselves. If we leave them up to it, they're going to destroy the whole planet. So that's why many of them chose to come down here in ships and start observing. But when you're coming here in a ship, a lot of times you can't influence the population. You're not even allowed to speak to them. There's certain rules of engagement that the ETs abide by. This whole prime directive thing is quite real. It's where they're not allowed to directly influence. They can't just do mass landings and come down here and be like, everybody get along, like we have to figure things out for
Eventually, oh, damn
ourselves.
it.
I know we have to figure
It's so
things
much
out for ourselves.
easier.
We have to do the hard work. Otherwise, we would just be replacing one cabal with another. So what they decided to do, and this was very clever, and Dolores explains this in the Three Waves of Volunteers, but the souls all got together and they decided, you know what, we're going down there ourselves. We're going to take bodies. We're going to start preaching about all of these things. And unfortunately, because many of our memories, emotions, abilities all come through certain frequencies. And when you are using a human body and you're using a brain, which is picking up those frequencies, we are extremely limited as to what downloads we're going to get. So our soul guides are instrumental in this because each light worker and starseed that comes down here that chosen to incarnate here to shift the frequencies have lifted quite a lot just being here because they carry a natural higher frequency on their own. But many of them are also being driven to do healing work, to
Mhm.
help people. So not only raising their own frequency, they're raising the frequency of other people. And by doing that, it's created kind of like a domino effect, where just thousands of tiny dominoes all coming together ends up knocking down some really big walls that have been put up for thousands of years.
Doing doing the work for sure.
It's not easy, especially when you forget so much, and but we have our team and they leave us little breadcrumbs to help us find our way through synchronicities and through these downloads that we get through some of these big solar flares that we get and stuff like that.
Right. So with the cabal and I'm curious what your theory is on that. Do you think that stems from the Anunnaki theory, or what do you think? Let's hear it.
Well, honestly, the whole Anunnaki is the ancient word for extraterrestrial. That's really
Yeah.
all it means. It just
Sky
means those
people.
from heaven. That's the old word for it, really. People that aren't from around here. And there are so many different beings that fit into that category, including Arcturians, because they have been here for so long. Humans are a mix of about 22 different ET races from all over the cosmos. Yeah.
So do you think the Enlil and that story is accurate? Yeah. I was curious
Well,
of what your
what's
theory of like
interesting
how
is,
the seeding happened.
what's interesting, I did have a very good idea of what was going on from my own astral projection experience, where my two Pleiadian guides basically explained to me the situation here on Earth. And they did say that we have been basically enslaved here for many thousands of years. And they didn't want us to know that we were enslaved here. So they would leave people here, I should say, royals here, that were part of their genetic bloodline, to kind of keep a wrap on things, to keep us ignorant and completely unaware of our true abilities. So a lot of these entities, I should say, because Enki and Enlil are very real. They were actually reptilians. The Tegetans, the people that pulled me out of body, they have a contact with a woman named Gosha, and Gosha has a channel on YouTube that I've mentioned. It's called Cosmic Agency, and this is one of the
Yeah.
things they've talked about. They've explained quite a lot about our ancient history, and they explained that much of what they have in the Sumerian tablets is actually fabricated. It's like the original Bible. They wanted us to think that they were 12-foot tall humans, but in reality, they were 9-foot tall reptilians.
Hmm. Oh man, getting to the good stuff.
I know. It sounds crazy talking about reptilians, but it is one of the things that I saw during my astral projection. I was laughing about it when my guides brought it up, and I said, "Oh, I know I'm dreaming now. You're bringing up reptilians." Because, like I said, there's the only thing from my astral projection that I knew beforehand was David Icke talking about reptilians. So that's what made me immediately like insult my guides and be like, "Oh, I know, I'm just imagining this." And they said, "Would you like to see one?" And they showed me one, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I've actually seen one now, and it wasn't just an image. Like I saw it like snarling and going to grab me, and it was like I said,
Crocodile?
they basically do have a head like a crocodile, yeah. And they're, I mean, it's a big-headed thing, and it's quite intimidating when you see them. But this is why they've been hiding for so long, and that's why they've gaslighted anybody that has seen them or experienced anything to do with them, because they want us. If we knew who was really controlling this planet, there is no way we would be voting out the problems. We would be out there with pitchforks and torches.
Right. No, for real. There's so many people still asleep that it's
Hmm.
so if you had the opportunity to have lunch with anyone on the other side or in another realm, who would it be?
First person that came to mind was Nikola Tesla.
That's a good
I love
one.
him. I really do love him, and everything that he has done for humanity, I don't think he got the appreciation that he deserves. And I would spend that whole lunch telling him how grateful I am for him.
That's amazing. And if you have a chance to speak to the collective, what would you like to leave with them?
Good things are coming. Really good things are coming. It might get a little weird. It might get a little uncomfortable, but after we get through those stages, there's going to be some really, really wonderful changes on this planet, and we have every single star seed and light worker to thank for that.
Yeah. Where can people find you and all that jazz?
Oh, I have a YouTube and a Facebook page called Astral Exploration with Lara Starr, and I spend quite a lot of time on there answering questions and having really cool talks about these things. So feel free to find me on there.
Yeah, it's an entire community. I feel like home there. It's awesome. Thank you so much for being here and
It's a pleasure.
giving us all the deets.
I love
We got to
hanging
do
out
it
with you. I'll
again.
have to have you on my podcast.
Yeah, for sure. This was fun and I've learned a lot. And I thought I knew quite a bit, but yeah, you gave me some zingers in there, so
I've
thank you
been
so
down quite
much.
a few deep rabbit holes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.